people, welcome to Chantel's Foodventures, where we bring the adventure back into your kitchen. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. On today's episode, we're making a chickpea pot pie, so let's get into it. I'm starting off this recipe by making our pot pie crust. So in this bowl, I have half of all-purpose flour and half of whole wheat pastry flour. So I'm just going to take that and put it into my KitchenAid mixer. And then I'm also going to add in some salt, as well as a mixture of vegetable oil and warm water. So I pour that in. And then I have my dough hook that I'm going to attach. And then we're going to mix this together until everything is completely incorporated. You could also do this by hand, it's the same thing, mix everything together and then knead it into a dough ball. And then we're just going to turn this on and stir it until everything is incorporated, and just try not to overwork the dough because then it'll be hard and then we won't be able to roll it out later. So our dough ball is formed, so I'm just going to take it out of our mixing bowl and just shape it a little bit. I'm going to put it in the same bowl that I have the flour in, and we're going to let that rest in the fridge for a little bit while we work on our mixture for the inside of the pot pie. To begin working on my filling mixture, I have my pan preheating on medium-high heat, and I also have my oven preheating as well at 375 degrees. So we're going to start off with putting some olive oil in our pan. And I'm going to add my carrots, as well as my celery, and also the mixture of chickpeas and yellow potatoes. And I'm also going to put my garlic in as well. So we're going to saute this up and let it cook down for a bit until the potatoes and the carrots and everything else are softened. While my pie mixture is cooking down nicely, I'm going to move on to the dough. So I'm going to take the dough out of the bowl, and I have it laid out on parchment paper, and I'm just going to cut it in half. I'm using a dough cutter, but you could just use a knife. I'm just going to roll it into a ball. So the reason why we cut the dough in half is because half of it is going to be at the bottom of our pot pie, and then the other half is going to be at the top. So we're going to put that into the center of our parchment. And then I have another piece that I'm going to put on top. And my rolling pin, and we are going to roll it out until we get a 9-inch dough, because I'm using a 9-inch pie pan. The best way to figure out if you rolled your dough out enough to fit in your pie pan is to literally take your pie pan, flip it over, and put it over your dough. And if the dough is a little bit outside of your pie pan, then you are good. Now that the dough is all rolled off, I remove the parchment from the top, and I'm just going to use my rolling pin to make it easier to transfer the crust to my pie pan. So we roll half of it onto it, put the pie pan underneath, we just lift it, closer, and roll it on top of it. Now I'm going to start pressing the dough into the sides of the pie pan so that it sticks and conforms to the shape of the pie pan. And now that everything is pressed into the sides, I'm going to use a pizza cutter and cut around the sides pie pan. Our pie crust is now in our pie pan. So I'm gonna go ahead and par bake that, and that just means that I'm going to pre-bake the dough before putting the filling in to give it a stronger base. So in order to do that, I have a fork, and I'm going to poke some holes into the dough, and then I'm going to put it in the oven and bake it for 10 minutes. And the reason why I'm poking holes in it is so that the dough does not puff up while it is cooking, and it will remain where we put it. And now I'm going to just move it on into the oven. Our potatoes are almost cooked all the way through, so we're going to add in our frozen mixed vegetables just to have that heat through as well. And then we're going to put this mixture into a separate bowl and start on our roux. In the same pan, we're going to add a little bit more of the olive oil, and then we're going to add our yellow onions. And we are going to cook this until the onions are translucent. And so now I'm going to add in some plant-based butter and have that melt down. And then we're going to add in some flour to begin the roux. For this part of the recipe, you are going to need a whisk. And now I have my flour. I use all-purpose flour, and I'm going to sprinkle it over the onions and butter. And I'm going to whisk it in with the two until everything kind of turns into a wet paste. Now that our onions look like this, we are going to add in our broth. And for the broth, I'm using Better Than Bouillon non-chicken base. I do actually have this on my storefront where I showcase all my favorite Amazon finds. And as an Amazon associate, I do earn based off of qualifying purchases. So I do have that on there, so check it out if you'd like. So we're going to take that and we are going to whisk it into our pan. The process of making this roux now is going to be a low and slow process. As you gradually stir this, it will start to thicken as more heat gets through the broth. So just take your time and stir, and it will get thick. My roux is to the desired thickness that I would like now, so I'm going to start seasoning it. But a nice hack for anyone who wants to know when their roux or gravy is thick enough, all you need is a spoon. So you just put your spoon in, get some of the liquid on there, and then you swipe your finger through the spoon. And if the two sides of the liquid does not touch, that means that your gravy or roux is thick enough. So now I'm going to add my seasoning, which is some white pepper, oregano, thyme, onion powder, garlic powder, and I'm also going to add in some salt to taste. And then I'm going to pour this gravy on top of my chickpea and potato mixture. My roux is nice and seasoned, so I'm going to take it and pour it right over the mixture of the potatoes, chickpeas, and other veggies. We're going to give it a nice stir before we move it on to our par-baked pie crust. I'm now going to carefully transfer my mixture into my pie crust. I'm going to make sure that it's a nice even layer across. And then we're going to use the second half of the pie crust that I left earlier to top it off. Once again, I'm going to use my rolling pin to lift up the pie crust, and then I'm going to lay it over the top. And then I'm just going to push this crust into the bottom crust to crimp it closed. As I'm crimping it closed or attaching the top part of the dough to the bottom part, I'm also just turning in any extra dough. So it kind of gives it a design, and it also moves the extra dough out of the way. And if you see any parts that are a little too thick, you could just roll that part off. And we may end up doing a little design in the middle. We'll see. Now that our pie crust top is on, I'm going to use a knife and I'm going to make a little incision in the middle of the pie to give it a vent so that while it is cooking through, the pie filling has enough air to cook through and it doesn't like overflow. So we're gonna put this in the oven at 375 and cook it until the inside is bubbling and the crust is nice and cooked through. Our pot pie is now out of the oven and I highly suggest that you let the pie rest for at least 20 minutes before cutting into it. So now I have my knife and I'm going to make a nice triangular cut. And then I also have a pie spatula that I want to get up under the slice. Hopefully I can get it out. And there you have it. Our pot pie. So here we have my chickpea pot pie. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and comment. And remember, healthy does not mean boring. See you next time.